fight. You had to dig deep. Give us your thoughts. Surprise, surprise. The king is back.
Yes, yes, the king is back on top, right where he belongs, along with his buddies. Welcome back to the channel, the main event here. And today we're going to be going over Charlotte Regional Championships that was won by Wolf Glick, who went 17-1 on the day. We're going to talk about his team, why it was a little bit cooler than it looks on the surface. We're going to talk about like the day 1 usage stats, day 2 usage stats, and then just highlight some trends that we can see. Question of the day: after Charlotte, which fire type is the best, and why is it Incineroar? So I want to start off with the winning team, like I said, which was Wolf Glick's team of Urshifu, Incineroar, Fluttermane, Fridgiraffe, Ogerpon, and Rillaboom. On the surface, the team doesn't have like too many special gimmicks or anything, right? Like it's just an Urshifu, an Incin, and Rillaboom, stuff that we've seen Wolf using since Generation 8 to win championships like the Players Cup 2, for example. Fluttermane is a Pokemon that everyone kind of uses. It had 60% usage, I think, in this tournament, at least on day 2. Fridgiraffe has been trending upwards because of the other priorities for him with Dragonite and Entei. And Ogerpon has been good since it came out, right? So nothing too insane, but like that's on the surface. But if you actually look at the team itself, right, he has some cool stuff. He said on stream that his Incineroar was a 77 stat, and I'm pretty sure the only way to get that is to breed for an EV number of 24 or 25, right? But basically not a 0 but not a perfect IV either, right? So that probably took a lot of grinding with like sandwiches, because it's you can get like an outbreak of Littens now, right, in the game. That's the first time you've ever been able to do stuff like that. So you hunt for a bunch of those, so you get like this slow speed stat, which also makes me believe that he didn't have anything invested in speed as well. He didn't release his EV spreads, so he probably just had like mostly like max bulk, probably something like this, because usually to a 50% number you want to have like something odd, probably something like this for the nature is what I would assume. And then you probably he figures out what he wants the EV for here, and then either you dump the rest in attack or defense depending on what he's trying to EV to live, right? So this is like whatever. So that was one of the first cool things I noticed. And then it also led me to the Fridgiraffe, which he said had a stat of 78, which also needs to have the weird EV number, right, under 31, or to have the 26 or 27. Because if you go like a minus nature here and you go like, you can't get to that stat. I'm not sure why he wanted those stats exactly. I think he wanted to make sure the Incin was always moving at a different speed to the Fridgiraffe, either second out of Trick Room, or hold on, let me fix this first so I can get the stat back up, or first in Trick Room is my guess, because he had the Trick Room mode on the team. I think that's probably what the purpose was. Didn't mention anything about the stats of the other Pokemon, but I thought that was cool. The Fluttermane was kind of interesting as well. Terra Grass, which was big at Worlds, but not really much since. There was a bit of a Calm Mind Drain kit that went around for a little bit, but no one really used it. But he had a Protect, Shadow Ball, Moonblast, Calm Mind set, which leads me to believe he probably had a very bulky like Fluttermane, like just really, really bulky. Probably had some decent speed, but probably bulk. And I think the premise of the team, especially because the Ogerpon also has Swords Dance instead of Redirection, which Fridgiraffe says you can't fake me out. Incineroar and Rillaboom says I can fake you out, and then I can set up with Flutter, I can set up with Ogerpon, or I can just get a free Charging Strikes for free damage with Urshifu, right? It's kind of the premise of the team. So he kind of just used a very standard set of 6, even though he had some unique IVs and unique sets of stuff like the Fluttermane, and essentially just decided I'm going to play with for everyone. That's kind of just what he did. He just played better than all of his opponents, which is not uncommon for players of the high caliber. Like they take a team of just good Pokemon and just play better than people. But he definitely brought Incineroar and Urshifu back to the top, where people thought they had fallen off, right? People thought that Incineroar was done for some reason, even though it had only been back for one event and did well at the event. People thought that like Urshifu would kind of just fall off the mountain completely because Raging Bolt was around. And Raging Bolt like did okay at the tournament. It won the first one, but like I didn't think it was gonna just stop Urshifu altogether, especially with the advent of Fridgiraffe, right? You just simply just block priority and you're fine. You can just U-turn out on that thing or close combat it and double up, right? It's not that hard to play around. So I don't know why people thought that would be the case. So here's the day 1 usage stats. These are on VGC, Victory Road VGC. This is from Top Plant Explorer. This is from VGC Victory Road. 2 really good resources that you should always check out. So the top used Pokemon on day 1 was Floodmane with 61%, Fluttermane has had a bit of a resurgence, if you'd like to call it that. It's always been like a top like 5 used Pokemon no matter what. Even when it like declined, it declined from like 70% to like 40%, right? So it's still an incredibly used Pokemon, and now it's starting to creep back up to those really high numbers. And I think it's because Chien-Pao had creeped up, Raging Bolt had creeped up, 2 Pokemon that Flutter has a pretty good matchup into generally, or at least at the worst a 50-50 matchup into the Chien-Pao, and a pretty positive matchup into the Raging Bolt. So it kind of just made sense. And not to mention ghost typing into like priority spam with extreme speed is also really good, which is why you also see the Fridgiraff. Even after last tournament, people thought it would fall back off, but nope, it stayed around because people know that priority spamming is very, very important to get around right now. Entei was still a pretty high use Pokemon, and well, Chien-Pao was much higher. This was 20%, so a little bit lower than I probably anticipated coming into this tournament. Landorus is definitely higher than I thought it would be because people had kind of given up on Landorus, so it's kind of interesting to see it here. They differentiated to the 2 Urshifus. Rapid Strike was 22 and Single was 21. So combined, that's like 43%. But differentiated is still pretty good, right? That both the Single Strike one is starting to make a resurgence, right? Because this was kind of like the better one as far as damage is concerned in Sword and Shield, because it was just more immediate. The Urshifu was more like an enabler and also like just water coverage, but you weren't looking for it to do as much damage as you were with the Dark one. Especially, I guess, because Wicked Blow was also stronger in that gen at base 80 power versus the 325s. But this was more like a colossal enabler, and this one was like the damage dealer, right? But now they're both kind of up there. Then you go to day 2, and oh my goodness, what happened to your precious little Entei? He's gone. He just disappeared. Can someone find him? Because I can't see him. Of course, I'm kidding. He is gone. And I like Entei, so I'm just taking a rib at all the Incineroar haters. But it did fall off with Chien-Pao because those 2 tend to be on teams together. So like when one disappears, it makes sense that the other one disappears as well. Fluttermane's usage actually went up overall to the general populace in day 2. So did the Ogerpons. Chien-Pao dropped completely. Tornadus went up. Amoonguss like almost doubled, which makes sense. Amoonguss is just a really good Pokemon. It's really good into like Ogerpon water as well, because Ogerpon water can't really touch it. Neither can like Urshifu for the most part. This Amoonguss forces this to click follow me instead of deal damage, right? Because you just spore into the partner, and this doesn't want to let you spore into the partner, so it has to click follow me, right? So Amoonguss is really good for that reason. Urshifu really ballooned from 21 to 34, which means it had a really, really good conversion rate. Incineroar went up from 28 to 30, so just about even. So basically, like what that number tells me, like if you brought Incineroar, there's a good chance you probably made it to day 2 kind of thing, right? Not exactly apples to apples in that way, but close. Urshifu Wrap had a good conversion rate as usual. The Raging Bolt, while it was still on the list, it barely made the list as it went down a few percentage points, right? Urshifu Rapid went up and this went down. And I think this has a lot to do with the fact that, one, Fluttermane is so heavily prevalent, going from 61 to 68% usage, and the Fridgiraff going from 16 to 20, right? So Fluttermane and Fridgiraff and Incineroar, stuff that one can fake this out, can block the priority, or just nuke it. Also Amoonguss that can like redirect it, were really good for Urshifu. And so as you can see, it still had way more success than its so-called destroyer. The Kingambit and the Indeedee had jumped in to the top 12 usage. Landorus stayed too, which means like it was a good call to bring it, right? Because it had success. That's always a good sign, right? If you made a meta call and it converts like this, that means you made the right call. So by people thinking that Landorus were done, it was not. Kingambit came in at 20% on day 2, where it wasn't even on the chart for day 1, which means that if you made the Kingambit goal same as the Landorus, then you probably had a good matchup to most of your opponents. Obviously, any Defiant user is going to have some success in the Incineroar format, especially one as strong as Kingambit, right? Which can kind of hit stuff for really big damage, even if they resist it. And you see Indeedee also jumped in. It just goes to show how valuable priority blocking is right now, and redirection. Amoonguss and Indeedee, both good redirectors. They premier redirectors along with like Ogerpon, which I don't think necessarily needs to be a redirector. So I do want to go back over to Cut Explorer, because if you go in the top 256, you can't see it because Cut Explorer is weird like that, and they don't have the top 256 I think on VGC Road yet, or at least they don't have it set up in the same way that Cut Explorer does. That's just the streaming stats. I don't want to see the streaming stats. That's top 128. So yeah. Yeah, so they said even VGC Road, says go to Cut Explorer to see top 256. So top 256, I'll just read it off to you. There's 167 Fluttermane, 132 Wellspring Ogerpon. So they were the overwhelmingly dominant Pokemon in the top 256 places. So basically, if you brought those two Pokemon, because they work really well together, right? So if you brought those to redirection for stuff that would hurt Fluttermane. Also, Fluttermane doesn't hit fire types really well, but Ogerpon hits fire types really well. So it makes sense that they kind of, as a pair, were 167 and 132 out of the top 256. Urshifu Dark is 84, Urshifu Rapid Strike is 55, Tornadus is 81, Chimpao 67 of the top 256 teams, Incineroar is 63, whereas Entei was a 42, who had a decent number still, right? No Arcanines, I don't think. Oh, 14 Arcanines, there we go. Arcanine Hisui was closer to Torkoal in top 256, because Torkoal had 13 as far as fire types go. Now, just day 2, I want to go back to the fire types. Incineroar was 23 of the day 2 top 75 teams. So that's basically a third of the field using Incineroar. And then Entei actually dropped down to 4. Entei was 4 and Torkoal was 3, right? Entei was closer to Torkoal than it was to like something like Gouging Fire, which was 10, and Chi-Yu, which was 10. So people are starting to pick other fire types that are not Entei, and doing well with them, right? That's kind of the important part. You can just pick any Pokemon, but are people doing well with it? And when you see in the day 2 teams that Gouging Fire has 10, Chi-Yu has 10, even Arcanine Hisui had 6, and Entei had 4 versus 3, then for some reason amongst the top players of the tournament, those Pokemon are performing better than Entei did at the first regional. And what was it, Portland? And then if you go into like top 8, 6 out of the 8 teams have Fluttermane. As you can see, like on the screen, you can see the picture. I'll even go up because my big old head is in the way. It was 5 Tornadus, which kind of makes sense because Tornadus kind of just enables so many things for so many Pokemon. Yeah, because Tolo got top 8 with it. This is actually a composition that I've been running that I'm probably gonna showcase on the channel at some point. I even reverse engineered the spreads to compare them to my spreads to see where I differ from Toller and Justin Karras, who use the kind of the same team, I'm pretty sure. So I do want to check that out. But yeah, 5 Tornadus, 4 Urshifus, single strikes, and 2 Urshifu rapid strikes. Even 1 Arcanine Hisui. Shout out to my boy Arbin. I'm going to click his team and show it to you guys in just a moment. Ogerpon Heart Flame had 3, and then the Entei had 1. 1 Entei still made top 8, and it was the Entei on Enzo Ricci's teams with the Smeargle and the Blood Moon stuff. Oh, speaking of Blood Moon, let's actually go over that. How many Blood Moon Ursalunas? Ursaluna Blood Moon had 3 in the top 8. In day 2, it had how many? 12. And top 256 had 35, which are really, really good numbers, but also a little bit less than I anticipated, like overall. Where'd it go? Use your stats. Because you see it didn't make top 12 on either day, right? Which is interesting because, like I said, even though in top 8, there were still 3 of them in top 8. So while it didn't have a ton of usage, like people thought that it was going to be like probably like one of the most prevalent Trick Room Pokemon, dominating the usage stats, especially with Giraffe being in the top 12 for both days. Blood Moon Ursaluna was not, but obviously if you brought it, you did do well because it had 3 placements in top 8, and like you said, in day 2 it had a bunch of placements as well, 12. So you did well if you brought it, most likely. So it had a pretty good conversion. I do want to look at my boy Arbin's team. Shout out to my boy Arbin from the Hive. I do want to try to have him on the channel to actually talk about his team himself, like his spreads and everything, if he's willing to do that. He had an Arcanine Hisui with Assault Vest that survived the Glamour Earth Power. That kind of helped win him a set because he's able to chip down an opposing Fluttermane from full to like 7 HP. I know he wanted that KO, but it kill kind of worked out because they was able to Sucker Punch it later. Whereas from Sucker Punch from full may not have gotten the KO, right? So getting that clutch survival with the Arcanine, I didn't see how he EV'd it, if he EV'd it any special defensive way or at all, or not. But he had the Banded Urshifu Dark. I actually know a little bit about this spread, and the speed and all that good stuff, but it's really good. He had Detect on here. I'll actually give you guys a reason for the Detect. I'll let him give you guys the full reason, but the secondary reason was people would like look at the team sheet and see detect and just would like either not realize it was choice band and think he could click detect, or and he would just wicked blow stuff because they would not target it trying to call a protect or something. So a little bit of a cheeky move slot on the Urshifu. Also, the fourth move on choice band sets is also very flexible, which is why sometimes on Flutter Mains with choice bands, you see Icy Wind, you see Perish Song, you'll see Protect, you'll see Taunt. Like you see a bunch of weird stuff in the fourth slot because it's just the most flexible, because you probably aren't going to click it that many times anyway. Air Slash on the Tornadus over the Bleak Wind, which obviously was a good call because you got top 4 at the tournament with this. It's just more accurate, and it gives you that flinch stance. I think it's just worth it. He had like Taunt, Tailwind, Air Slash. He didn't have like Rain Dance, which is obviously because he didn't have any Rain users on the team, which is why I think like Tornadus can be even more dangerous off of Rain kind of competitions than it is on them, because it doesn't have to use that Rain Dance slot. You can add Protect, you can add something else. So it's actually really, really cool to see. Otherwise, once again, question today: what is the best fire type in your opinion in the regulation as of this tournament? If you don't think it's Incineroar, that's fine. I want you to tell me down in the comments below. Otherwise, thank you guys for being here, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.